I was recently interviewed on my good friend Paul Hoyt's Mind Sequencing podcast. And following episode with Paul, where we talk via Skype, is a great episode. It's about our past friendship together, how we worked together, how we evolved into separate venues, as well as the power of positive thinking, and all about Paul's Mind Sequencing website. It's a great conversation between friends. Hope you enjoy.
I am very, very excited today to talk to my good friend, Jared Levinson, about what we are doing to help people of the world. Jared is a really special young man, and I'll let him tell a little bit more about his personal history in a minute. But hey, Jared, it's great to be talking with you.
Hey, Paul, I'm glad to be talking with you, too. If you're watching the video, I just made a silly face at Paul. I hope it doesn't appear too weird, or maybe it's going to be cut out. But I've known Paul for a while, so I felt comfortable and to make a silly face at him. Anyways, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to just talking about the power of your mind, our minds, and I really admire how you've transformed a lot of your bad thinking habits, we'll say, I guess.
Yeah.
And how you've been persistent about that over a period of years. So just excited to talk with you, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You know, I think that Jared and I are practically the same age here, except for our bodies are slightly different in age. But our spirits are very similar. You know, I think we're both kind of old souls here in this universe, both of us very focused in our intentions on being the best person that we can possibly be and being of service to other people as well. In fact, Jared and I were business partners just a couple of years ago. We had a business called ProStar Performance, and in that we were focusing on bringing emotional intelligence training to companies and individuals, you know, here in the San Francisco Bay Area, here in the South Bay Area of San Francisco. We met at a networking function and had a conversation about meditation and personal development and health and happiness, and realized that we were on the same journey and practically on the same place, I would say, on that journey, and decided that we would try to figure out a way to do business with each other, and that's what we did. And we found emotional intelligence and the framework of that, and developed a really good business model around emotional intelligence. We did a couple of cohorts on that, right? A couple of classes on emotional intelligence.
Yeah. And we had a few groups that really significantly impacted their relationships. That was my big takeaway. It seemed like these emotional intelligence skills helped people. Primarily, it seemed like we had a lot of couples, and so the couples got along a lot better. But I remember one guy was being more assertive at work as well. So we had things like that.
We did what we called a 29-day challenge, which was a 4-week program focused on the 4 different quadrants of emotional intelligence. And I'm going to share my screen here just for a second, because I want to make sure if you're able to watch this, you know, that would be great. If you're just listening to it, we'll describe it to you. But I'm going to share my screen for just a second, because I want to make sure you understand what we're talking about when we talk about emotional intelligence. You should be able to see that fairly well right now. So emotional intelligence framework came out in a book by Daniel Goldberg. I think it was 1985 or something like that. And he talked about the 4 different quadrants of emotional intelligence when it comes to personal competence, self-awareness, and self-management. And then for social competence, into social awareness and relationship management, which are really great things to talk about. In fact, I think that emotional intelligence is the science of personal development. There's a really wide body of material and content available, courses at universities, you know, study programs. It's very well studied, and it works extremely well, you know, especially in a business environment for people to help with their personal development. And he and I went a little bit further and created a 5th element to emotional intelligence, and came up with this little diagram, which I'm very proud of because I actually did the graphic work on that myself. We changed self management to self mastery, and changed relationship management to relationship mastery, and came up with a 5-point system or 5-aspect system for emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-mastery, social awareness, relationship mastery, and what we're really focused on, which is self-realization. It's just being the very best person that you can possibly be, because that's really the focus of what he and I are both all about.
I'm getting a kick out of seeing that image, man. It's
a kick out of looking it up this morning too. It took us a while to do that. So we put a lot of time and effort into that. And then at some point in time, we just kind of looked at each other and said, I don't think this is what we really want to be doing. And we moved on to our own thing, me into mind sequencing and Jared into being, Jared, I'll let you explain what you are doing these days. Talk to the people.
Yeah, it was funny that we were both so passionate about emotional intelligence, but when we get into emotional intelligence, the application of it can be very specific. Like, you can use it to train your mind, you can use it for relationships. And for me, what I was putting together these dots was that emotional intelligence was missing from people who were struggling with eating. So I had been seeing this as a trend. I was working as a personal trainer at that time, and I saw all these really idiotic approaches to losing weight that screwed up people. And as I got into it, I realized, wow, there's a group of people that just have a struggle with overeating, and these emotional intelligence principles are so good for them. So maybe I could really, really help these people in a significant way, kind of very specifically, like tailoring emotional intelligence stuff to that specific issue, along with other principles more related to eating that aren't found in emotional intelligence. But so yeah, right now I'm an overeating coach, and I incorporate emotional intelligence principles along with nutrition and a bunch of other aspects to really help people out.
So I think you do 3 things right now today. You're an overeating coach, or a diet mindset coach. You're also a personal trainer, and you also teach yoga classes, right?
Yeah, and I probably will teach yoga classes for the rest of my life. I'm only at like a few classes a week, but even as my career grows, I think I want to keep teaching yoga. It just is a really good way to heal the body and get in touch with yourself. And my style of yoga is very gentle, so it's not really a workout, but more of a meditative experience. And yeah, I teach a little bit of yoga, and really value that for me personally.
Yeah, I love that. I practice a little yoga every day, just a little bit, only like 5 or 10 minutes. But the stretching is I think, essential part of my health program as well, my health management program. Yeah, so I think that once we got into emotional intelligence, one of the really advantages of it was it really gave us a lot of good content that we could use later on in life. I mean, the whole concept of self-awareness, then self-management, and social awareness, then relationship management, and then self-actualization was really, really helpful. And I think it helped both of us realize what we really wanted to do. And what I really wanted to do was to share the stuff that has worked so well for me, especially over the last 12 years ago, these sequences of thought and action, this realization that I could use the power of my own thoughts and my own mind to shift my energy and lift my spirits anytime that I wanted to. And as you can tell when I'm talking about it, I get really excited about that message in a way that I could never get excited about emotional intelligence message, because that's somebody else's message. That's somebody else's content. Mind sequencing is like my stuff.
What do you think is the difference between mind sequence? Like, what are the similarities and differences between mind sequencing and emotional intelligence?
Here's what it is for me. So mind sequencing is about 2 things. It's about self-awareness, about waking up and remembering the power that you've got to shift your energy and seeing the gap in between where you are right now and where you want to be. It's noticing when you're in the shadows. So we focus on self-awareness, and then it's probably 80% self-management. It is a very specific self-management technique, or rather a body, a collection of dozens or hundreds of self-management techniques, sequences of thought and action to actually do something about the gap that you see. So that's what it is. And my belief, by the way, in my personal experience is if you focus on self-management enough and raise your vibration enough and lift your spirits enough and elevate your consciousness enough, that social awareness and relationship management kind of take care of themselves, because you become a loving, kind, empathetic, compassionate person. You notice other people. You care about other people. You begin to watch and listen to other people with a real honesty, not just with the sense of trying to get them to do something that you want them to do, but the real sense of helping them on their journey through life. And when you become a loving, kind, wise, peaceful, strong, powerful person through self-management practices, your relationships start to fall into place too. Because you have a heightened sense of awareness, so you can tell what's going on with other people. You come with other people with a sense of real concern and compassion. They recognize that. It really builds the relationship. So that's the key. I think the key to me is you do a little bit of a self-awareness to figure out that, hey, I'm not where I want to be, and you do a check-in with yourself and focus your time and attention on managing your consciousness, elevating your spirit, and the rest of life kind of falls into place.
Yeah. I remember Tony Robbins saying something to the effect that the most important skill to master was how to shift your energy, how to shift your emotional state, how to manage your emotions. And, even you're right. I mean, emotional intelligence, like these are the first two steps. Like relationships come after,
Yeah. Yeah, I think unless you're into manipulation, if you're into manipulation, then you can learn all kinds of techniques to persuade people, and sales training does a lot of that.
Yeah.
Sales training talks about establishing trust and rapport and gives you frameworks for making that happen and how you to have small talk. And we taught some of that stuff when we were teaching people about emotional intelligence, but it really wasn't from the heart. Now, Jared, you've gone into really focusing on helping people with their health, with their managing their diet and managing their exercise programs and really focusing on physical health. But a big key to that is the mindset, right? I mean, you teach people, I think I've seen you put some language out there about enlightened eating, and really focusing on shifting your mindset before you sit down to a meal. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. When I think of enlightenment, there's a reason I have a Buddha statue over there. I've gone through some eating struggles myself when I was a wrestler in high school, and I lived as a Zen monk for quite some time, and basically getting in touch with my body, but also seeing my body differently and seeing myself differently. That's what really enabled me to do a lot of healing and to normalize my eating and to be healthy and feel good and get a lot more energy. So this process, it's very inspired by yoga and Buddhism and flavors. But enlightenment to me means getting out of rigid thinking. In Buddhism, there's this phrase, the middle way. So they say avoid extremes, basically. You don't want to think too hard, but you don't want to think at all. There's a middle way. And so it's taking this flexible, this non-rigid, this non-perfectionistic approach to, I'm going to say, diet and nutrition and I'm not even going to say and moving your body. And I don't use the word diet as a sense to lose weight, but just what foods you're putting in your body, like what foods are you regularly eating. And so a lot of people, they get trapped into thinking, if they're not perfect on their diet, they're a screw up. And then they kind of fall off the edge a little bit, where because they can never achieve perfection, why bother at all? Or even worse, kind of a lot of this sense of failure gets embedded, and they just get disconnected from their body. And over a while where you're disconnected from your body, you just have your eating habits can be out of control even. And so helping people recognize uh, their thoughts and stories and how to take a more balanced perspective and connect to their bodies to stop overeating and just feel good around food. It is such a healing approach. It really draws on yoga to help people stop overeating. But I'm really passionate about it. It involves my own healing journey and the principles that I've used and learned and kind of what's the word? Been inspired from yoga.
Hmm.
It's kind of like how we were talking about how you're taking this aspect of emotional intelligence to self-management and like really focusing it in on the self-management. For me in this yoga thing, it's like taking all these principles of mindfulness and yoga, but then channeling them into eating. And for overeating and people who feel afraid of food, it is the medicine that they have been missing. The doctor and all the health plans and the calorie counting, it drives people nuts. And this is like such a enlightened perspective. It's such a new way of incorporating both health and personal feelings. So that's kind of where the word enlightened comes from.
I like that. I like that. One of the pieces of wisdom I've learned over the years is that we all speak a slightly different language. I really like the clarification that you brought into the enlightened conversation, and the importance of focusing your mindset before you do your thing when it comes to diet and exercise. Yeah, I had a program that I introduced and ran for many years called the Awakened CEO System. And that was based on 3 different levels. First, you focus on your mindset, then you focus on your methods, and then you establish momentum. And that seems to apply in so many different ways. But first, to get our thinking right, and our attitude right, and our perspective right, and frame the story of our lives right, and then we can pick methods that will work for us, and then we can put that plan into action.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, when we talk about mind sequencing too, one of the things that I want to work with you on, and hopefully we'll see some results here in the next few weeks, is very specific mind sequencing exercises, helping people shift their mindset into one that's more positive around diet and exercise. I remember I wrote a little poem some time ago and shared it with you. And let me see if I can remember it now and share it with our friends too. It went something like this. I'm not afraid of being hungry. I'm conscious about my meals because I remember that nothing tastes as good as being thin feels.
Yeah, I remember that little, is that not a haiku, it's like a stanza.
I don't know. It's just a little poem. One of the, as you get to know me a little bit better, you'll know that I write poetry and
I know you. Yeah. No, I know. Yeah,
all kinds of things, but because I find that poetry and songs are a really great way of shifting the energy. I think that we as human beings, we have instinctual, and I mean we have a genetic heritage and a predisposition towards an oral tradition of songs and stories.
Mm-hmm.
Poetry is a great way to remember those songs and stories. That's the way that we passed knowledge and wisdom down to our children and other members of our community for years and years, essentially, and until Gutenberg invented the printing press in the 1600s, I think it was.
Yeah, and it's funny how so much of mind sequencing, it's kind of like poetry in the sense that like poems, you don't really yell or scream poems, right? That's like you kind of say poems nicely and gently and so like in a way we're learning how to be inner poets to ourselves. One quick side tangent, I definitely help people recognize feelings, but there is some language, just the word thin can be, I don't know, it can be not the ideal goal. Like when people, they are thinking about being thin too much, then it can actually stop them from connecting their body because they're evaluating their food from a logical perspective and saying, is this going to make me look thin? But instead of connecting to it emotionally and noticing how the food makes them feel. And the beautiful thing is that once people actually get outside their head, they drop all their stories and soften their tone of voice with themselves, their inner poet to themselves, you could say, and they actually connect with the food, they start realizing pretty quickly, yeah, chips and simple carbs and basically the traditionally unhealthy food, it just doesn't feel good. And it's from a place of feeling rather than like is this going to make it, it's just a different paradigm where
I love it. I'm going to officially change my poem.
Yeah.
And change the last stanza to say something like, I remember that nothing tastes as good as being healthy feels.
Yeah. Yes. That's a lot better. Oh yeah.
Well, thank you. Coach Jared has been my coach in many ways, and I know I've been his coach in some ways too over the last couple of years. Jared, if the folks want to get a hold of you and talk to you more about the programs and the way that you support people, both here locally in the South Bay area of the San Francisco Bay Area, or anywhere in the United States, how would they get a hold of you?
They can go to eatingenlightenment.com. You can easily figure out a way to schedule a session with me. And what I offer is a 3-month training program on how to stop binge eating. It focuses on holistic eating skills, and we've seen some pretty good progress so far. So there's some videos you can watch from people who've kind of gone through it, and some testimonials you can read on the website. So that's how you can get in contact with me. If you message me on LinkedIn, of course, you can find me there, Jared Levinson. But eatingenlightenment.com.
Cool. And for those of you who are listening to Jared's post of this particular podcast episode, you can get a hold of me, Paul Hoyt, at mindsequencing.com and sign up for our mailing list and get a free 23-minute video that explains the mind sequencing program. I call it the Essential Guide to Mind Sequencing. And then we've got a variety of programs that we're offering thereafter to help you learn to lift your energy and lift your spirits anytime and anywhere, help you break through whatever's blocking you right now and level up in your life. That's what I'm passionate about. So we share that common passion for doing everything we can to leverage all of our experience to helping other people experience life in the way that they want to do that.
Amen.
Any closing remarks, Jared?
Let me think. I probably should come up with some closing remark, right? Like, you got to have a closing remark. And right now, I'm totally stalling for time.
I guess I'll offer my closing remarks.
Actually, I was just touched because, just to see, like, now we're talking, like, just me and you, like, we're doing our own things, but, like, we're both so passionate about our own things, and now but we're still, like, connected in some way. So I'm just kind of touched to see the star, to see you on the screen over there doing mind sequencing and just thinking about how much we've grown.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's one of the many advantages, by the way, of really getting your shit together, elevating your consciousness and becoming a loving and kind person, is that when you may come together in a venture of some kind and then split apart, but the love is still there. The kindness is still there. We don't look to each other to help us to be responsible for our own state of mind. Each one of us takes responsibility for being the best person we can be. And whether we're working together and seeing each other every day, or whether we are separate and seeing each other every once in a while, or whether we're deciding to climb to the top of Mission Peak, which we're going to have to do again one of these days.
No doubt.
I'm looking forward to that. Now I'm in better shape than I was the last time I did it. That's for sure. It really is great because having great relationships is really a function of having great consciousness, having a great mindset, really feeling good about yourself and feeling good about other people, and really feeling good about the relationships and the bond of friendship, which I dearly love. So thanks for joining me today, Jared, and I really appreciate that. We'll say goodbye to all of the folks, and reach out to Jared at Enlightened. What was it?
Eating Enlightenment.
Thank you. Reach out to Jared at eatingenlightenment.com. Reach out to me at mindsequencing.com, and we'll do everything we can to help you live a healthy and happy life. Bye-bye.